Welcome back to Code Cloud and DevOps Ask Me Anything. I got another series of questions and the question goes thus, and I really love the question. It says, I am pivoting into DevOps and Linux administration. I'd like to know what path you took and a realistic time frame, as well as job opportunities out there to see if it's worth venturing into. I'm already in love with Linux, but I have little knowledge on DevOps. And the other question, which is sort of related and I'll combine in this answer, is want to start a career in DevOps engineering, but I don't even know the roadmap to take. I need your mentorship, sir. Well, I made a video on DevOps mentorship. You can check that out in the card showing on your screen right about now. But then I wanted to give a bit of a background of my story and give you a proper roadmap because I didn't have a roadmap when I was doing that. And the reason I'm doing this is because I really love your question, and I believe your question actually goes a long way in showing how committed you are to learning this. You have an understanding of something which gives you a good background into learning DevOps. So your skills in Linux is actually a great starting point for learning DevOps. Now, talking about my journey into the world of DevOps, I started off as a client application developer. That means I was developing apps for Windows, mobile phones, mostly Windows devices back then. Of course, I now do stuff with Android and iOS and all sorts. Yes, I used to do that back in the days, but now, well, I'm no longer a client application programmer. I'm a DevOps engineer, but I can still flex my muscle with C# and .NET MAUI. But that is not my main area of focus career-wise right now. So, I started falling in love with DevOps when I was looking to automate the deployment of my apps to Windows Store back then. And that was when I discovered there was something called Oki App. And then I discovered App Center. Along the way of my research, I found out this wonderful tool called Visual Studio Online. Some might know it as Visual Studio Team Services. And it's what is recently called Azure DevOps. I realized I could also use that to deploy web apps. Yes, I was writing client applications for Windows phones and Windows desktop PCs back then. But then I realized being able to develop web apps is actually a lot more fun than actually trying to develop mobile apps. Yes, I can do all those right now. And I had a little bit of understanding of web apps. I could write basic ASP.NET apps back then also. So I started exploring and trying to just deploy sample apps to the Azure platform. And that was it for me. My curiosity just grew along the way. I started knowing how to manage work items, how to deploy, how to get security into stuff. And that was me. I deployed my website back then using Azure Visual Studio Online, now called Azure DevOps. And then the curiosity just went on in me to explore more and understand more of how the things work. And that was literally how I got into DevOps. I did not exactly have a roadmap back then when I was starting the world of DevOps. So most of the things I know in DevOps today, I actually picked them along the way, knowing that, I need to do this, I go learn that. I need to do that, I go learn that. That was basically me. So I delved in the world of DevOps, actually by curiosity. There was no roadmap for me back then. And that was one of the reasons I actually decided to start out this YouTube channel to sort of just document my experiences learning DevOps on the Microsoft platform back then. Now, there are more refined pathways. There are more refined things people do to ensure that we can actually learn DevOps in the world today. Now, to your other question, that is DevOps engineering worth venturing into? 100%. I will recommend it a lifetime over. It is definitely worth venturing into because I love what I do every day. Yes, there are roadblocks, there are obstacles along the way, but we'll conquer them every single day. But I love what I do. I love being able to deploy apps. I love being able to automate infrastructure. I love being able to actually provide a platform that developers use from day to day. And now, let us look at what the roadmap ideally would look like if I was to start today, if I add all the knowledge I had today back then about how to start learning DevOps. This is what I will go through. So let's go through the roadmap. Now, you have an understanding of Linux already, which is very good. And the reason I say that is because most of the infrastructure we deploy and the tools we use rely heavily on Linux in its various shapes and forms. So you have picked a great place to actually start your DevOps journey. Now that you have a solid Linux background, you would want to consider the following. Well, if you haven't yet, first is you learn software development. Software development fundamentals so you get basic understanding of a programming language like Python or Go. Those would be great starting points. Next up is to make it a little bit more fun is to learn scripting. You would need to learn a scripting language, and that is basically for you to be able to perform tasks from day to day. Scripting languages like PowerShell, Bash, you can use it to do simple things like manage your folders on your computer or do advanced infrastructure deployment in the cloud. Now, my two most recommended options for scripting is PowerShell and Bash. Yes, PowerShell runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux operating system. It's open source now, so it's really, really great. Next up for you to learn along your journey will be source control tools like Git. Git is the most popular of them all. So you should be learning Git. You should be learning how to make commits, how to branching strategies, all those kind of things. Source control is one thing you also want to learn as you go forward in your journey of learning DevOps. Now, most of the cloud platforms, most of the DevOps platforms support Git, so you'll be in the right place if you're learning Git. There are other source control systems also like TFVC, Mercurial, Subversion, but Git is the most popular of them as of today. Your next challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to learn how to do a bit of the following. And this is not a comprehensive list, although it's quite a number. You should learn how to set up networks, configure firewalls, web servers, load balancers. You will need this on a very basic level for now, simply because we'll delve into the details of it much later in this roadmap I'm explaining to you. Now, it's not a hassle if you cannot go through all that, but try to understand the basic fundamentals of how networks and firewalls and load balancers work, really just theoretical knowledge. Now, after getting the understanding of networks and servers, your next learning would be about containers. Yes, containers. Now, the top choice here is Docker, and the reason is because, of course, Docker is popular. There are other containerization platforms in the world out there today, but the most popular is Docker. You will learn the basics of containerization, creating an image, pushing an image to a registry. Somewhere you learn container registries and all those kind of things. Now, once you have some level of confidence in containerization skill, your next goal is to learn about cloud. Now, first you need to learn cloud fundamentals, the basic bedrock of the cloud, before deciding to pick a cloud platform. Yes, you could learn your cloud fundamentals in alignment with the cloud platform, but what would help you most is if you learn the fundamentals of the cloud and pick a cloud platform or vendor of your choice, AWS, Azure, GCP, any one of them, you'll be fine and good with. Of course, my personal choice is Azure, but I don't want to push that on you. Now, you can decide about other clouds later, but pick a particular cloud platform and know it so well that you can do, normal stuff, everyday tasks with it, even if you decide to learn other cloud platforms in the future. Now, once you're grounded in the fundamentals of cloud platforms, your next milestone will be to get back to networking, the one you learned the basics of previously. You would now need to learn the details of networking, security, and protocols, things like FTP, SFTP, SSH, SSL, TLS, HTTPS, all those kind of protocols that we use in networking today. There's quite a number of them. Once you go in your favorite search engine to look for network protocols, you would find all those there and learn about them in a little bit of details and get grounded in it also. And I think one thing you should always remember as you go through this roadmap is that your learning is supposed to be continuous. You should learn as frequently as possible. Now, one of the concepts you'll also want to consider in this journey is learning about serverless. The world we live in today is all about serverless, all about trying to minimize the amount of time applications run so we go green, So serverless is basically a concept where applications only run when they are needed. So you would want to consider learning serverless also, because we are moving to the era of microservices. And one of the things that actually make microservices live and thrive and to be cost effective is serverless. So you need to learn a little bit about serverless. Let's now get serious. You're now entering the core cloud and DevOps land. Just kidding. You've been serious all along. Now, your next piece of learning is infrastructure provisioning. What do I mean by this? You will learn things like infrastructure as code. You learn the tools used for them like Terraform, Azure Bicep, Pulumi, and the likes of them. And the whole essence of infrastructure as code is to ensure that you can deploy infrastructure repeatedly using templates, using modules, using a framework so that you don't repeatedly perform tasks over and over and over again. That is the whole essence of infrastructure as code, tools like Terraform, Pulumi, and all the rest. So now once you learn this, your next step will be to learn about configuration management. And this is where you learn things like Chef, Puppet, Ansible, and all sorts. And the reason for this is you would need to ensure that when you deploy infrastructure, when you deploy workloads to the cloud, you want to ensure that they have a uniform set of configuration. So your web server should have basic things installed with them. Your databases, your database server should have a particular set of configuration. You don't want to manually tinker with infrastructure. So these configuration management tools help you monitor and then even sometimes help you fix things. For example, PowerShell DSC, PowerShell disaster configuration helps you to ensure that you can monitor, say, if a web server is on a particular virtual machine in the cloud, and then if it's not, you can always ensure it's installed. Probably an intern removed it. You can always go ahead and fix it back and all those kind of things. So your pool of web servers, maybe Windows web servers, Linux web servers, would want to have particular set of configuration, and then you can always put that into your code repository to ensure that there's a uniform way that infrastructures are configured in your organization. The next bit you want to learn now is secret management. Now, I'm not saying you should keep secrets, but of course, keep secrets in the cloud. Now, when you deploy infrastructure, when you configure and deploy applications to the cloud, sometimes you use API keys, you use secrets, you use all these kind of things. You want to ensure that these things are not exposed where they're not supposed to be. They're exposed in a secure manner. They're encrypted and you don't commit them in code. So you want to learn things like secret management. Most cloud platforms have a sort of vault system that they use. For example, Azure has Key Vault. You remember, I'll mention Azure a lot because that is what I know and that is what I do every day. Azure Key Vault can be used and connected to your pipelines to ensure that your secrets don't get exposed. If you use tools like GitHub Actions, you can set secrets at your action stage or even at your repository stage, even at your organization stage, to ensure that when you're running your GitHub Actions, when you're running your pipelines, when you're running your deployments, the secrets are gotten in a secure manner and you don't have to commit them ever in your code. So that is one of the things you will learn in your journey. It is very essential and it is one of the bedrocks that actually makes DevOps really super fun. You would want to learn infrastructure monitoring next. What do I mean by this? You've deployed your virtual machine, you've deployed your web server, things are running fine. Well, presumably. Or not. Is it slow? Is it fast? Is it up? Is it down? You want to know. So you need a particular set of tools to ensure that you monitor the infrastructure, to ensure that the thing you set up is doing what it's supposed to do. And if it's not, you want to know in time so you can fix it before customers start running after you. So you need a set of tools to monitor infrastructure. There are a lot of infrastructure monitoring tools out there. There's PagerDuty, there's Azure Monitor, there's Datadog. There's just a lot of them out there that you can explore to see how you can monitor infrastructure and ensure that you get actionable insights into how your cloud workloads are performing. You've been able to ensure that the servers and the platform your apps runs on are monitored and fine. The next thing you actually want to monitor, which is very essential, is also your applications. You need a way to measure metrics on how your application is performing. Is the application responsive? Not in terms of design, That's for web designers. I'm not a web designer. We're not talking about web designing here. Is the application responsive to requests? How many requests are coming in over the last couple of days? Is there a degradation in your software? How do users interact with the solution? What's the user flow? Where are users coming from? Those kind of questions can be answered if you have a sort of application performance monitoring solution. And there's a lot of them out there also. Azure Monitor, Application Insights, there's Splunk, there's Datadog, there's just a lot of them out there you can also explore to ensure your application monitoring is good and well. You've gotten insights, you've been able to monitor infrastructure, but sometimes you need to dig deeper than just the insights you get. You know what I mean? So you want to know when, how, and where troubles happened. You want to know what happened before a particular error occurred, or which location the error happened in. Maybe it's your cluster of servers in the US, or somewhere in China, or somewhere in Germany, or somewhere in South Africa. You want to know. So log management is one of the essential things in DevOps also. You want to be able to go back in history to check and do audits, maybe for auditable purpose, maybe to be able to debug, maybe to be able to figure out where things went wrong in your application. Tools like Splunk, Graylog, Loki help you achieve these kind of purposes. You've learned about Docker, containerization, pushing an image, but then sometimes in the world of microservices that we live in today, you want to deploy and manage multiple container images at the same time. You need a container orchestration tool. Yes. So in the world of DevOps, you need something like that. The most popular option that we have today is actually Kubernetes, but there are things like Docker Swarm that you can use also. All the cloud platforms, the major ones, Azure, GCP, AWS, they have their own Kubernetes platform. Like, for example, we have Azure Kubernetes Service, EKS, we have GKE that you can use. Even the not so popular ones also have a form of containerization tool that they use. Now, under the hood, Kubernetes is the same. Once you get past the cloud platform specific authentication models and all those role-based access control things, Kubernetes management is the same. And what that simply means is that the same command you would use to get logs, deployments, anything in GCP on a platform running Kubernetes is the same set of commands you use in Azure or AWS. So a good understanding of Kubernetes is applicable across all the cloud platforms that you are used to. There's a lot more to learn, really. And I'll just wrap back there because that will sort of form the basis of what you really need to be a DevOps engineer. In the world of DevOps, it's always about continuous learning. It's always about continuous improvement. It's always about continually getting up to date in the things you do. So, but I'll just wrap it up there, and big thanks to roadmap.sh/DevOps. They were my reference for actually compiling this list for this video. So thanks very much to them for compiling that list, and it's just me making a video for it. It's all about contributions to society and making the world a better place. And then, of course, once you get that roadmap, if you figure out there's something that needs to improve in a roadmap that I've shared with you, remember to put it in the comments so that we can all learn together and people can benefit from it also. And I really hope that answered your question. This is the longest DevOps AMA video I've ever done. So be sure to comment, be sure to share, be sure to let me know if it actually answered your question, at least to an extent. And if you need me to actually delve deep into some of the things I mentioned here, I'm sort of trying to keep it under a particular time frame so it doesn't get too much. But I hope it answered the question really. And if you have further questions on cloud and DevOps, ask me anything. You can always put them in the form using the link showing on your screen right now, or you can, of course, scan this QR code and ask a question. I'll get to answer them. The good news is, I need to share this with you. The good news is I've now set up a sort of automation around how I get this form so I don't miss your question. So whenever you fill that form, I actually get a to-do. Yeah, I get a to-do task to attend to that video. So the place of truth where I will get all the questions is that form. If you put on the questions, you get on my calendar and I'll be able to answer it hopefully within 2-3 weeks time frame, depending on the amount of questions I get. So, but of course, I will see your question the same day. It will get on my to-do list the same day. I will have visibility into it in less than a week. because it automatically gets prioritized on my calendar with the tools I'm using today. So that's one sort of goodness. And I actually talk about how I manage to stay productive in the next video. So be sure to check that out also. So, but generally that's it about this video. I will get back and get back to editing, get back to recording, get back to work, do things that make the world a better place from time to time. Until I come your way again with Code Cloud and DevOps Ask Me Anything, stay safe and goodbye.